On radio, we are here with little Dave. He is looking freaky as ever in his updates. So we were just going over and talking with. He is about halfway through the first cycle of the new training program?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I'm excited to watch this unfold over the next 7.5 weeks and see how freaky you can get before we hit an off week. So that's something I will go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. It's always funny because you get to the off week, and you're like, do I really need this? But then you take it and you're like, yeah, we really needed that.
Right. So that's actually something I wanted to start the show with was, in your initial plan, I always list the date of 8 weeks post show. And I think in the past we've gotten there and you're like, Chris, I don't know if I need one. And then we've gotten to places in the past at 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, where I think I should probably take an off week. And, we just allow your body to dictate that, honestly. And then at the 8 week mark, it's a hard stop for me. I'm like, okay, I don't care how great you feel, like we're going to stop.
Yeah.
So, and then like you just presented, like once you get into that off week, you're like, fuck, this is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a huge misconception in what I will call immature lifters. They think off weeks are punishments, and they aren't. Like, if anything, an off week allows your body, your brain to rest and chill and not take serious stress. And when I say stress, I'm talking about the self-induced lifting and cardio that we do. And what you'll find is about halfway through that week, I start to get like antsy and like, man, I'm ready to get at it. So when Monday or Sunday or whatever day I choose to start my training back, I'm ready to tear those weights apart. And that's a conducive place for muscle growth.
Yeah. Very true. And you also, like people forget that every time, but your body's ability to contract comes from your CNS. Yes. And if that's a clusterfuck of stress, you can't contract as hard. That's just a fact.
Agreed.
And if you can't contract to the, your fullest, like, and your body only responds to places it's never been, you're already shooting yourself in the foot.
Agreed. And those people tend to be the same ones who tell me this. I can't take naps, Chris. I don't have time for massage and chiropractor. I don't have time for those yoga mobility workouts you talk about. Guess what? If you don't train for a full week, take that same little block of window that you always train at, whether that be first thing in the morning, that means you get to sleep in. If you're not going to sleep in, get up and do the yoga mobility, go take an ice bath, take an Epsom salt bath, like get on a foam roller, like all things that are going to help your recovery. If you train in the middle of the day or the nighttime, like go and rest, man. Like get off of work and chill. And I know some individuals really struggle with that psychologically. Is they're like, oh, well, if I'm not working, I'm going backwards. And again, that's just a sign of, to me, immaturity in the mindset of training. Is, hey, one small step backwards. And honestly, I think an off week is like you're just standing still. So, and then you're going to take a big, huge jump forward.
Yeah. Well, it's just like if you're driving a car, right, and you take your foot off the gas, it doesn't like the car stops.
Right. Yes.
Your progress is still going to keep moving.
Right.
If you slam on the brakes, you're slamming donuts and you're just like, staying up late and just like doing all that shit on your off week. Cool. Like, not really going to help you. That off week did nothing. You just wasted your time.
Correct.
But if you stick to your diet, you take your recovery thing seriously during that time. It's like your body is just you won't lose muscle tissue.
No. I also feel like this too is, and I know this is something you reported, this is something I've always noticed, is during that off week, I don't starve you. It's a very calorically dense week. And it's usually very well-rounded. There's fruits, well, not for you, but for most people, there's vegetables. We pull back on protein a little bit to ease your digestion. The carbs are moderate. What you'll find is when you're not training and running yourself on the ground and doing cardio, your body volumizes and you lose zero fullness. Now, you don't have that same pumped look like you would after you finished a workout, but that shit comes back as soon as you train one time. Like, you and I will always probably start with back. even if it's legs, like your whole body, just by carrying weight, holding weight, supporting it on your shoulders, is going to get that fullness back that you normally have. But
Mhm.
it should have less joint stress and pain. And then your mind, like I said, should be so freaking fresh that it just feels incredible. Another cool thing you could do during that off week is schedule a vacation or a short trip, right? Like if
Yeah.
at the beginning of that week you're like, okay, this is going to be the off week, excellent. Let's go take a quick 4-day vacation and just chill somewhere because you don't have to worry about training. You don't have to worry about cardio. You pack your meals and you're good. Like there's so much less, I'm going to say, stress involved with that because I know you're like me. When I'm traveling and having to train and do cardio, that's one of the first things I'm thinking about. What gym am I going to? How am I going to get there if I don't have a car? Like all things that
Yeah.
matter during
Yeah.
the
It's fun.
week.
It's funny. I'm going on a little trip this weekend, but it was funny because Liz was telling me about it, and I was like, "Where's the gym? What food do we have? What do we have for cardio?" And she
Mhm.
was like, "You don't care about anything else, do you?" I was like, "No, I'll have fun as long as those things are in play.
Right.
Like, if those things aren't in play, I'm gonna be just worried about that the entire fucking time."
Correct. And which is why that off week is huge, right? And why you can plan a little trip. And it's like,
Yeah.
awesome. I have nothing to worry about. You're like me. I could push back meal 1 to 10 o'clock and still easily get all 6 meals in with the reduced food volume.
Yeah.
Uh, because we can eat at 2 hour mark because it isn't like, oh, well, I think a lot of people don't think about their schedule as a whole, right? Is if I'm going to train at 12, that takes up a block of time and fills my stomach with intra workout, where that pushes that meal schedule longer. Where if I don't have to train, I can eat at 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8 done.
Yeah.
Like, so in that window of 10 to 8, you figure by the time I finish the meal, 8:15, 8:20, I've eaten all my meals, and then everything outside of that, I can do whatever I want. So if Angela wants to go for a hike or if she wants to go shopping in the morning, awesome, cool. It's
Yeah.
fucking simple. If she wants to do something after dinner, easy. I have nothing to worry about. You want to go watch a movie? Excellent. I'll get a Diet Coke. All my meals are in. I have nothing to stress about.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah. So the off week is huge. I'm actually taking one right now because I just felt beat to shit and I hadn't had an off week in way too long. And I came back from California with you. I took Monday off from training because you and I trained Sunday, and it was like straight back to the gauntlet of I had such a good week of lifting, and then we had football practice start, and like when we got into the gym to film yesterday morning with Chaz, I was like, my body feels just beat to shit.
Mhm.
So I said, perfect. I'm gonna take the next 5 days at minimum off, and let's see what happens. So
Yeah.
again,
Well,
just
it's funny too. I mean, like, some people would argue, well, we need to do a deload or that would be more beneficial.
right.
But if you take people like me and you, like, I've laughed about this with Zach before because he's like, we do a deload. He's like, that was worse than our normal session. He's like, everything was just a higher, less weight, but to failure.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Like, well, we didn't do many forced reps.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. There's no force reps. There's no drop sets. There's no rest pause. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I find I'm like you. I may go into that gym with every intention of leaving reps in the tank on exercise one, or sorry,
Yeah.
for the whole day. Exercise one comes, I'm like, man, that feels really good. My muscles awake, my brain is on. I'm good. I'm good. You get to exercise two, and you're like, shit, that shit feels light. Like the things are just starting to click. Things are starting to click. By the third exercise, I'm in a full session.
Yeah.
It's like I said last week with you training with you pre and post show. Like in the back of my mind, I know you have a show, but once we get in it and sweat's dripping and reps are coming, the pump is full, man, I fucking forget all of that shit. And
Mhm.
people say, "Oh, Chris, well, you're not that dumb of a meathead." No, but when you're having that much fun, you just fucking forget, and it's like it's autopilot because for you and I, autopilot is hard. Like I know autopilot for some people are like, oh, that they can easily find 6 to 8, 2, 3, 4 reps in reserve. That's not our normal. Like that's not what we call training.
Yeah.
This isn't how we were. This isn't how I'm wired. So yes, like you said, I'd much rather take 4 days off, 4 full days off, and then hit a hard push-pull legs and then start over fresh week one. You know, another great option if you don't want to take a full off week, is to just simply do that, you know? So
Yeah.
you figure if you train your last training day on, say, a Saturday, you take off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then you're back in the gym Thursday, Friday, Saturday, push-pull legs, off Sunday, starting your cycle fresh on Monday. Another valid option that you could do. And I've done that in the past too, where I've gotten through, essentially that's 5 days off and you feel great.
Yeah.
I've also done it
Yeah.
where I've had 6 days off, trained arms, took a day off, and then started my training cycle. So another fun variation. Oh no, Chris is breaking all the rules. Fuck.
I think we've done it where we've done like 5 or 6 days off, followed by like a full body pump day.
Yep.
Well, it was just like, you know, like one exercise per body part, and then started to split the next day after that.
Correct. And that's just, I don't know how you feel, but that full body session to get back at rolling is like kind of knocks the dust off. Like,
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly because you're like, oh, I only took 6 days off, but like just to get back in the groove of feeling those muscle contractions and connecting with your body parts again, like, and to get your mind wrapped around it, that's always huge to me. And like I said, man, you know, the longer I do this, I realize there's no fucking rules. I know some people that would break them psychologically, but I've always thought about training adaptability being more like water as opposed to being rigid like concrete.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, that's like the fun part about bodybuilding is we all have different lives and
Yep.
different, like, you know, different recoverability options.
Yes.
You know, someone who works at the post office probably doesn't need to do a fuck ton of cardio because they, you know, walk 20 miles a day delivering the fucking mail.
Correct. Yep.
You know, however, but like, same thing with training.
Yep.
You know, like everybody's gonna be slightly off that way, and that's like the fun part of dialing that in.
Yes.
For yourself, because like there are concepts. What it's just like painting, right? There's oil based, there's chalk, there's graphite, there's pencil, there's, you know, pen, paper, there's tattooing.
Yep.
All of them start the same concepts, but how you apply them is what makes them different.
Right. Yep.
But there's not a rule, like not a single rule on, you know, other than like you got your fundamentally, if you mix, you know, your basic colors together, this plus this equals this color.
Yep.
That's just, you know, facts.
Yep.
But how you know, apply that color is where the beauty of, well, art or bodybuilding comes into, you know.
Yep. That's what I think I always appreciated by reading like the muscle magazines or watching bodybuilding DVDs. Is I'm like, all these people look like freaks and got there from vastly different paths, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you have some people who have a coach, some people don't have a coach. You have others who are high volume, some are lower intensity. You have other people who are higher intensity, lower volume. You have some people that do tons of cardio, some people that do none. And then everywhere in the middle, you have guys who use some drugs and some that use all of them. Like, and at the end of the day, they're all the 10 or 20 best physiques in the world. Like, how does that work?
Right.
Which takes us to our topic of the day, which if you are a evidence science-based lifter, that can't be possible, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the way, and if you stray from it, you're a moron. I kind of say that tongue in cheek, obviously, but you get the point. You know, one of the things, you know, you asked me what I want to talk about, and it was my long-winded answer to you was I'd love to really dig my heels into the differences and the distance between science-based, evidence-based lifting and then like the ultimate bro. So if I'm giving you guys an example, like the Trend Twins, right? Where it's like you pick shit up, you put it down, you eat a ton of food, and then you take the supplements you need to grow, and then it works. Or you have the people over here, like they're so hyper precise that not one singular thing isn't accounted for, planned to down to the millisecond. Their execution is so perfect, it's boring to watch. And you have the guys over here who are slinging weights and they're told they're idiot moron buffoons, but yet they have a ton of muscle. And to me, that much space is where you and I live, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Because I think if you look Go ahead. Sorry.
It's so funny because like when I started bodybuilding, like social media wasn't like the biggest thing there.
No.
But like I knew two things from just observation. The big guys ate a lot of food
Yep.
and lifted really fucking heavy.
Correct.
So in my mind, those two things would be things I needed to do. I need to eat a lot of food,
Yeah.
and I need to figure out how to lift heavier.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and nowadays people want to overcomplicate bodybuilding. They want to be like, well, you have to start your day with this digestive drink, otherwise you're gonna fail. Or you have to have all this fancy, you have to have your pre-workout, your beta alanine, your, you know, you have to take your Cialis before you train arms, you know, because otherwise you won't get a good pump. And it's just like you're skipping over, you're overcomplicating things that don't need to be overcomplicated.
Yep.
And undercomplicating things what will be, right?
Yep.
Like it's people will gloss up, they'll be like, you know, they'll have that entire regimen kicked out. They have their $300 Nike squat shoes will have the perfect angle, but they're squatting the fucking bar with a quarter on it.
Yep. Yep.
It's like you spent $500 on that outfit, but it's a 15-cent squat.
Right. Yes. You know, it's really interesting when John and I were with Biotest, and they were pumping out all that like Indigo 3G, plasma, all the beta alanine intra workout shit, right? Like, so if you think about like that, just that Nalgene bottle alone, I think was $23 or $26. Indigo 3G was something stupid like $400 a month. So we were getting all that shit for free, right? And I'll never forget, I walked into Elite with him one day, and we were both shaking our bottles, and he just looked at me and goes, "You know what's really funny, Chris?" He's like, "People place so much emphasis on what you have in your hand, but none of that shit matters if they don't do what we're about to do in the next 90 minutes." And that always stuck with me. And I'm like, yes, you're right. Because, we had, if you saw the amount of shit we used to have to put in there, you'd be like, Jesus Christ, it's a lot of intra-workout stuff. Because it was all at the time they were formulating how to get the perfect amount of everything. So we were doing individually scooped in. And I mean, you had to have a big ass funnel, and just like, it was like a science experiment.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is so many people would get so fixated on, oh, like what's in their drink, why is it green or purple or red or orange, and then, oh God, like how many minutes are you having this before you lift, and are you using it with insulin, and what does your pre-lift meal look like, what does your post meal look like? And I'm like, no one asked us what we were training like.
Yeah.
And I always paired that with, at the same time we were doing all that experimentation, and I was loving how much I was recovering and not getting sore off of doing all that shit, and yet we were training like maniacs. I remember listening to a podcast with Chris Aceto, and someone asked him, it was a question to him and Dave about intra workout nutrition. He's like, none of my guys use it, and he's training the top 20 in the world. And I'm thinking to myself, man, is he just that dumb? Like, is he not evolving his mindset? And then later on in the podcast, he said, all that shit just covers up shitty training and poor nutrition. And I was like, oh, fuck, got it. It's the same thing as you and I talk about with drugs, right? Like, you can take a lot more drugs and fucking hide shitty training and poor eating. It's the same thing with intra-workout. So, to get on that topic of, it's always is going to stem back for you and I to training and nutrition. And, you and I love to dig into the finer details of bodybuilding because it's fun. It's cool, right? Like,
yeah.
But that's just a subsection of the entire, I don't know how you want to say it, workout, day, training cycle, however you want to look at that. If we spent our entire time and being and energy in the minutia of little intricacies, we wouldn't be as successful as we have been.
No,
I believe that.
I mean, bodybuilding is really simple as much as you make it, but it's a little bit more complicated than 1 + 1 = 2.
Yes.
But one thing I think what people so many times fail to realize is like the emphasis they put on things is wildly wrong.
Yeah.
Like if you play the game of chess, it's not a simple game. Chess is a complicated as fuck game.
Yes.
Right? I like to think of bodybuilding in that way that sometimes when I look at it, because the main component of the chess, right, is your king.
Yep.
If that guy's gone, you fucking lose.
Yeah.
In my perspective with bodybuilding, that king is training.
Yes. Yep.
Your queen, she does a lot of the fucking work of the board.
Yep.
She changes a lot of things. That's your diet.
Yep. Yep.
You can do a lot of two things if those two pieces are in play, right? And then you have 8 pawns.
Yeah.
Those are drugs.
Right.
People, you can't win the game of chess with just pawns.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
They forego thinking about training or diet, or the other guys on the board what play a role.
Yep.
But we could go into. They all play little roles, but their focus is on the left side front pawn, which is tread.
Right.
And it's like you could lose that piece immediately and never use it and still win.
Correct. Yep.
You lose your queen, you lose your king, or the pieces in the back. Yep. You're gonna have a rough time. But your king's gone. You can't if you're not training. Bodybuilding doesn't happen.
Agreed. Yes.
Like it all stems from that.
Yeah.
If you don't have training, nothing else matters.
Yeah. And I think
it doesn't matter how good your diet is. You're not going to be a 200 plus pound animal by eating chicken and rice.
Correct.
Like you can't just go home and be like, if I ate 6 meals of chicken and rice and never went to the fucking gym, think about that logically. Do you think that person's ever going to have fucking muscle on them? They're going to look like they eat chicken and rice every day. They're not going to be out of shape.
Right.
But you wouldn't know they eat like you're just like this person's skinny or healthy.
Yes. Take that analogy further. When you're doing all those things right, it feels like you're playing checkers. Like,
yep.
Once you have all those pieces into place, and I think that's what people, when they hear you and I speak, they don't understand that how long it took for us to get to a rhythm of eating. Like the rhythm of eating, the rhythm of learning how to train and train properly and hard at the same time. All of those things now are just like constant in our lives because we've done it for so long consistently that when you just have to modify things, that's when you have to start getting out a scalpel, so to speak, right? And that's what I think. So if I look at it from the opposite perspective, you take the meatheads down on this side, which I naturally gravitate towards because that's where I started and always will want to be. I think they do really, really well at a lot of things until they hit a problem they can't solve. So let's talk about some of those. Digestion. What the fuck happens when you can't smash food all day, every day? They either have one or two things. Typically, they either say, fuck it, I'm going to eat through that, and then it blows their stomach out. Or they're like, fuck it, give me drugs to do that, right? GHRP6, up growth hormone, up insulin, all things are going to trigger hunger response, add more AEQ in there. And then what does that do in terms of a cascade, right? Where they didn't get to the bottom. If they would just took some time to assess nutrition intelligently and think about the digestion properly, they probably could have solved the problem with much simpler of a solution, right? Yeah. And then if I look at it from let's say another problem will be training. So I'll use me to the exact example. Every body part's well developed except for my back. What happens now? And they're like, oh, well, Chris, Ronnie Coleman says deadlifts and barbell rows and dumbbell rows and T-bar rows till you can't stand up. Okay, cool. You've done that for a decade and your back still looks like garbage. Now what? And then they're lost because they haven't had to use this. They just use for lack of a better term, they're a meathead, right? They use the muscle. Well, to me, like that's when you have to start thinking intelligently or reaching out to people that have more experience solving problems than you do. Because it always isn't more drugs, more food, more sets, or harder training sessions.
Sometimes it's less.
Correct. Yes.
And that's it's not always 100% get. Like if you go, finding why you have that weakness, whether it's a neurological thing or it's just an anatomy, like you're not using your muscle correctly, or you got something that's compensating or undercompensating, and you're just not like your body's just not getting into the positions correctly.
Right.
Like, fantastic. Let's break that down, look at it, and figure out why.
Yes.
Instead of just like continuing to like, I always laugh at that. Like, you'll take someone who they have small arms, and they're like, well, I'm school crushing and hammer and easy bar curling and my elbows just hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and you have small arms. It's like, okay, let's switch those, let's swap those workouts out. They're like, no, I've got to do it this way.
Correct.
It's like, no, you don't. And we also know from you doing it this way, your elbows hurt and your arms are small.
Yes.
Like that, the weight you're using isn't going into your biceps. We can see that, or your triceps.
Right.
It's going into your joints. It's
Yep.
like, all right, that because you're either you don't line up correctly with those movements, or you're performing them wrong.
Yes. Yep.
So let's find things you can perform right and or align right for, and progressively work that.
Yes.
Where so many people get caught up, they're like, nope, I've got to do it this way.
Yep. And so at the end of the day, right? Like, that's why you and I will always land in the middle, right? Because there has to come a time where you have to step outside the box and assess your progress and your physique analytically. And that's hard for some people because it's emotion tied to it, which is why, you and I believe so much in coaching. Is when I look at your photos, when I see you on stage, I have zero emotion towards it. It's, we have to fix this, we have to fix this, we have to fix this. All right, cool. How do we do that? And you and I do that by working together. Okay, Chris, when I do dumbbell side laterals, I feel it in the Arsenal machine more than I feel it with the seated with my arms bent. Okay, cool. Why in the world, even though I feel the seated one, would I program that for you? We just found that out when we trained together. The Arsenal one, I had a half your weight and I still didn't feel it great in my side delt. I said, hey, I'm gonna do the one right beside you. You're like, cool, I'm staying here because I love this one. The meathead of that would have said, Chris, get over there and fucking figure out that Arsenal piece.
Yep.
The intelligent one is like, hey, I can go 5 feet this way and train hard and 100% in my side delt. Why in the fuck wouldn't I do that?
Exactly.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't have ego. The ego of me would have said, fuck it, leave that 120 or whatever you had on that piece and just find a way to get that shit up. But I was like, fuck that. Like, I just feel that in my joint. Like, let's go over here and let's do something I know I can lock into and dominate. So again, I think a lot of times people hear me bang on the fucking science community so aggressively, and I will smash that right now. What I can't stand is the people that fall within that group who fucking parrot information, who have never been in the gym training hard with clients themselves or have any experience helping people get to be a freak. That they can't tell you or I we're doing it wrong when they've never gotten a client over 220 pounds. I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to you. You have theories or you're parroting someone else's information. We have tons of people running around here sounding exactly like John Jewett right now.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's a smart dude with a ton of muscle. People trust him. All they're doing is just saying all the same shit he does. And it's not bad information.
No.
It's actually good.
It's not, but it's hilarious too, because it's just like, did you the people who are parroting it, it's like, have you tried it yourself?
Correct. Yes.
Like, there's one bikini chick on, she always shows up in my fucking feed.
Right.
And it's funny because she's promoting, like, she's talking about like men's cycles. Yes. And like, it's like, I don't care. Like, if you're talking about TRT, you could probably talk about that because you can do that yourself.
Right.
But like, if you're telling me like I shouldn't run EQ and I should use Masterone instead of EQ because it works better, but you can't, like, the only logical thing you have behind that is based off like studies done, but you don't have any, you've never actually done either one.
Yes.
Right. It's like, like, why would you be now? Why are we listening to you for one? Like, if I go to, if I have a Ferrari, am I going to go to, the Honda dealership and be like, can you tell me what's wrong with my car?
Right.
No, you're gonna go to the Ferrari dealership and you're gonna ask. You know, the Honda guy might know something, but like he does not know to the details or has done it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so many people just like want to read something off the internet. They're like, this is the truth. You know, and it's like, well, it can be or it couldn't be. Depends on how you apply it.
It's really interesting. So Angela's Jeep was doing this weird thing. It was leaking fluid all over our garage. So I took it to my normal mechanic and he couldn't fix. He's like, Chris, I have no clue what the fuck's going on here, right? So her dad said, hey, like, take it to this guy. He's a Jeep guy. Within 3 minutes, he told me exactly what was wrong. And he's like, it'll be $200 to fix it. I'll have it done by 5 o'clock. Both are mechanics. One sees that issue all day, every day, and can diagnose it like that. Why? Because of thousands of hours of labor. and that, again, we didn't have this on camera because you and I were just talking about it. I said, the first time I ever saw and met Dusty Hanshaw, I walked up to him from the back, and there was no question in my mind that he had done all the deadlifts and all the bent over barbell rows because all the muscle on his back was wild, doing oversized shirt that you could see bulging out of it. But that science community lifter is going to look at him and say, oh, he's a dumb meathead. You can't listen to him. He has shitty form on his barbell rows, and he deadlifts way too much weight. His spine's going to break. Huh. Okay. How do you know this? Look at his back and then look at yours and all of your clients. None of them match or even are a fraction of it. So the dilemma, right, is for when I say new people, it's really novice lifters. Because I mean, a novice lifter could be 50 years old, right? They hear these really intelligent men and women speaking very thoroughly and well and explaining themselves, and it sounds great and it's big words, and it's like, oh, that's what I need to do. And then on the other side of that, you see all these guys just slinging weight and slamming shit and growing. And then you look in the comments, and what is that? What are all the science-based kids say? Roids, drugs, supplements, 3 grams of test. So then they get discounted because it's like, oh, well, hey, you know both groups use drugs, right?
I think it's also really funny because it's just like, I mean, there's obviously that stigma about stupid bodybuilders.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, for whatever reason, like that still exists. But nowadays you got these scientific people, you know, what are in the bodybuilding community, and they're like, oh, you've got muscle, you've got to be a fucking genius. It's like,
Yeah.
well, the funniest thing is it's like the science things, like I'm all for trying new things and learning new things, but looking for quick and easy ways to do something that's not quick and easy.
Yeah.
Right. Bodybuilding is the furthest away from quick and easy.
Yes.
Right. It's going to be painful, and it's going to be that for years.
Yeah.
You know, if you're comfortable, you're not changing. So you're going to be learn how to be uncomfortable for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a matter of, oh, I did this this is my 6 weeks bikini shred. You know, it's like this is the 600th week of eating the same fucking chicken and rice.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's where things get so convoluted. It's like, well, this stupid meathead is, 260,
yep.
In the off season, just chilling, full of muscle. And this smart scientist is 185.
Right.
And like, if you had them walk down the street and you're like, which one's the bodybuilder? Yep. Which one are you going to point at?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which is why they always go back to the drug thing, right?
Yeah. And and then you go back to the drug thing. It's like, these guys take the same shit.
Yes.
This guy,
go ahead.
it's just like I said at the beginning, eat a lot of food, learn how to lift heavier weights.
Yes.
And then you got the guy who's like, he's like, I found a way to do it with, maybe I don't need as much food or as much weights because I'm twisting my pinky finger at the same axis of the rotation of the sun. It's like, fuck, man.
the compasses and protractors do not come out when we train.
No.
I I think the very first time these two realms went head to head is, you remember Generation Iron with Ben Bukulski and Branch Warren?
Yeah.
And Ben was like, "Oh, well, Branch is a dumb meathead and he does so many things wrong." And Branch is like, "Let that science guy keep all of his fucking fancy studies, man. He's like, he ain't beating me." And I remember watching that and so relating to Branch, because now, I mean, I think part of it was the theatrics of the show, and they had like Ben was like with Dr. Brad Schoenfeld in the perfectly controlled environment with E-stim on his muscle and testing his heart rate and all that stupid shit. And then you have like Branch at Metro who's like sweating his face off, throwing 200-pound dumbbells around like they're like nothing. And then you see Branch make the top 10 and Pekulski doesn't get called for the finals, right? And I was like, that's the answer. And I realized that it was for a movie and for entertainment. And I also like, it always kind of pissed me off because I was a big Ben Bukulski fan when he was younger, before he started really leaning into all the science, because he trained like a maniac. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people, I think, forget that about him. Go back and watch his early training videos where he's squatting 6 plates for 20 reps. Like, there was no thought into that. It was put a lot of weight on my back and squat until I can't stand up. Okay, cool. There's a reason his legs were some of the best in bodybuilding history. I don't believe it's because he was using, his toes were pointed at a 32-degree angle on a leg extension. I literally programmed one of his leg extension sets into your workout where it was was a descending set followed by an ascending set with no rest.
Mm-hmm.
All the scientists would tell you that's too much, it's too hard, you'll never recover from it. Weird, right? But it works. So, I don't even know where to wrap this topic up, but there's something to be learned from both groups and fall in the middle, and you can be skewed to whatever side you relate to the most. And it's kind of always how I've thought, which is why I've always loved John's shit. Is he was like, I'll look at the science. If there's something we can learn and apply from it, let's use it. And the same thing, he's like, some of the things that he taught me and us and the whole lifting community was just stupid shit that he did in the gym that hurt and worked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the last time I was training with him, it was a shoulder day, and after we did it, like, man, my pump was so fucking big, like it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I stripped down to the tank top in the gym because there was no AC. And he's like, "You see that cap on your shoulder?" He goes, "Everyone in the intelligence community would tell you that that's impossible by what we just did." And it was all high reps, fast pace. Like, it was just see who could take and endure the most pain. Like, that was the best way to describe what we did for shoulders that day. And it might have taken 15 to 20 minutes. And I mean, I couldn't have gotten any more blood in there. And I just laughed. And he's like, "No, I'm serious, man." He's like, so many people would tell you needed a heavy dumbbell press, or so many people would say 8 to 12 is the perfect hypertrophy range. He's like, we didn't do anything under 20. And we were doing standing side swings. And his goal was like, "Chris, if you can get to 60, you didn't choose heavy enough weight." Like,
Yeah, 100%.
so again, that's why him and I always got along so well, is he could see both sides of the coin very clearly. And, I think that's why people leaned to him so much, is he could speak intelligently. He could use all the big words and blow people's face off in terms of his knowledge. But then at the same time, he wasn't scared to go in the gym and put a Marvel t-shirt comic shirt on and just bang with old school bodybuilding. And
Yeah.
I'd like to think you and I are in the same realm with that,
Yeah. Definitely agree there.
Any final words?
Well, hard and it's never going to be easy. So stop trying to find an easier way. If it sounds like an easier way, it's probably not the right way.
Yes. I did say, like, what the science people could learn from meatheads. Like, the thing the meatheads can really take away from the science people is, I would encourage them to not bury their head in the sand with blood work, to take their health seriously. All those silly health supplements that so many people think are useless, they aren't.
Oh, yeah. No, everything plays a role with each other.
Correct.
Like, your kidney function's elevated, your blood pressure is going to suck, and
Yes.
then your cholesterol is going to follow. You
Correct.
know,
Yep.
And, you know, and when those things get skewed, you can't train hard. If you can't train hard, good luck growing.
Right. And then if you're
Really
super
simple
toxic,
fucking
it's me.
basic shit.
Right. Yes. Yep. So I mean, I think that the internet does a great job of shock and awe. And I almost wonder if some of those science guys lean into like how cute they are in the gym. When I say cute, I mean like precise, precision. Like that's what I commented on your post this morning. I'm like, oh, you didn't supinate your pinky while you were simultaneously pulling with your iliac lat fiber. Like,
Right.
imagine doing a set of your top set of lat pull downs and that you being your thought process.
Right.
I find it very hard to believe that you're going to pack on slabs of muscle doing that. Now, at the same time, you have a foundation built and a connection built to your lats that takes that thought process out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm speaking to the intermediate to beginner lifter, it's like, hey, where do you start? Because they don't have the connection that you have to your lat or any muscle for that matter. It's like, why don't you start in the middle, right? Learn how to do what I would consider basic exercises of dumbbells and barbells really well. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you have a good grasp of form and your nervous system has adapted to that exercise. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you're benching dumbbells and one's going down faster than the other. That's just your damn nervous system. You aren't acclimated to lifting properly. You know, you see that a lot of times with guys like squatting, they'll twist to a side, or if they deadlift, one side of the bar pulls up before the other. All those things are just neurological. And you have to, once you get through that phase and your form is, you can be confident in your form, that's when you get brutally strong. And then if you pair getting brutally strong with lots of food, and lots of food for you is different than you and I, good things happen. So
Yep.
that's the takeaway for today. Take your health supplements. Don't be cute until you need to be, and then eat a lot of food. Take your health supplements. Yeah. And I think the last final point we will make here is whatever category you tend to fall into, don't discredit the other group because both can work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with either one of them.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
It's whatever you relate to, right? It's whatever gets, it's you and I always say this. You have to go with what fires you up because at the end of the day, if you don't wake up ready to attack your plan wherever it may be, good luck doing this for a decade or more.
Yep.
You know, if that's a logbook for you, hell yeah. If it's a pump, fucking chase that bitch. If it's being progressive, meaning every year I'm lifting more weights and eating more food and I'm leaner, fuck yeah. However it fires you up, man. Like, again, because I've seen guys and girls be super successful doing things on paper that make no sense, but they attack it with everything inside of them and it works. Like, it just does. And if it is, this is the true final point. If something is working, don't change it.
Oh, 100%.
Don't ask questions. Don't outsmart it because I've done that to myself and I've been so fucking angry with myself in retrospect. If something is working, ride that bitch till it stops giving you progress. That's one of the things I've always nailed with you coaching you. I could have gotten cute and changed your training every week, every month, every 6 months. If you're growing, I leave it the fuck alone until you say, hey, Chris, this exercise isn't working for me anymore. Hey, this hurts my shoulder. Hey, this isn't fun anymore. Okay, cool. Let's find out something that is.
Yeah.
There you go, guys. Science versus meatheads. Comment below. Which one are you? And we'll see what the percentage is.
I love it.
We will judge our demographic.
Yep.
All right, guys. Until next time, Chris, Dave, we are done.